Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 13, Episode 75. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Thanks for being back with us here this Monday, Steelers Nation. And Dave, it was the super wild and super wild card weekend, a very exciting, close slate of games, capped off with that Sunday night game, the Bengals beating the Ravens. So always a bummer for Pittsburgh to not be part of playoff weekend, but kind of fun to watch it all from afar.
Boy, they're, being out of the playoffs, normally, or when the Steelers obviously are in at least one of those days, you're ate up with having to, cover the team before and after and all like that. So it's kind of a rarity, and hopefully they don't make a habit out of it. But with them obviously not being in the playoffs, you get to sit back and watch all these games, and obviously 5 so far this weekend, and a couple of them looked like they were going to get away, get out of hand real quick, and teams come back, and boy, what a game that Chargers Jaguars game was. And then you fast forward into Sunday and the Bills and Dolphins game, and it looked like that was gonna be kind of a whitewash early on, and Dolphins stuck around in that. And you close the night out on Sunday night with kind of what I would refer to as a typical AFC North game, playoff game there. And, just to have one of the biggest plays really, or the biggest play of the weekend, happen late in that game there with the Huntley, leaping over the goal line, trying to score, what would probably be a dagger type touchdown for them, and have the ball knocked loose by Logan Wilson, and, going back the other way, 98 yards like that, and ended up being the difference in the game. So win probability was really shook on that one there. But I think one thing we learned this weekend, at least in the wild card round here, we'll see how this transpires on into Monday night, and then obviously into the next round of the playoffs. You better score some points, Alex.
Yeah, what was the stat that you had? Teams that scored more than 31 points were 3-1 or something like that?
Yeah, 31 or more points. They were 4-1, and hold on, I'll find it. There was 286 points scored in the 5 games on Saturday and Sunday for obviously 10 games, 28.6 per team average. You score 31 and over. The teams that scored 31 and over were 4-1, and the teams that scored 30 and under were 1-4. I'm not sure. I didn't look back. I can real quick because I have it here. Let's see some of the games last year of the 6 games that they had last year: 26-19, 47-17, 31-15, 23-17, 42-21, and 34-11. So it was a tale of kind of the haves and the have-nots last year in this super wild card round, whereas this year it was basically quite a few teams obviously being in the 30 and over category there. So it'll be interesting to see, are we going to get some defense at some point? Because normally at some point you see that the defensive side of football stands up on the run to the Super Bowl here. So
sure.
And I don't know if you would call the game Sunday night between the Bengals and the Ravens a kind of a defensive battle. It was kind of compared to the rest of the games, right? But overall, it seemed like both teams were moving the ball pretty good overall.
Yeah, I think maybe in this modern era, the mindset shifts from having a defensive, dominant performance to making that timely defensive play like the Bengals made on the goal line to totally, change the course and ultimately win the game. I think maybe those are those weighty moments, that one critical turnover. Winning the turnover battle is probably the standard and the mark that defenses need to have these days, as opposed to holding teams to under 17 points.
Yeah, I still think at some point along the way, you're going to have to see them score have to play some defense along the way, right?
Yeah, I mean, sure, to an extent, you can't win every game in a shootout. That's not tenable, but certainly for Pittsburgh, you understand. This is an AFC that's going to generally look like this for the next 5+ years as the Jaguars emerge with Trevor Lawrence, with Mahomes. Of course, the Chiefs didn't even play this weekend. What the Bills can do, just all these young quarterbacks that are on the rise, or guys that have been established and aren't going anywhere anytime soon. Joe Burrow in Cincinnati, a good example of that. So that's the mark that's been set in the AFC, and that's where Pittsburgh will eventually have to get in the realm of to truly compete for another Super Bowl.
Well, look, I mean, they got to score more points than they've been able to score. Boy, there was, seemed like quite a few explosive plays in this thing as well, too. So it is a bit concerning overall when you look at this and you see, teams scoring the amount of points that they're scoring.
Yeah, it just highlights where Pittsburgh has to be. But I look at it as a little less on the points and just on the quarterback play overall, and the names that are left in Trevor Lawrence and Josh Allen and Joe Burrow and Patrick Mahomes. Again, just to reiterate the point, those guys aren't going anywhere. They're going to be playing in their cities for the next decade plus, in all likelihood. Sure. And so you add in all the other ones too. What happens with Lamar if he comes back in Baltimore, stays in the AFC if he goes somewhere else. Again, not saying that Kenny Pickett has to be the next Patrick Mahomes, but you have to be able to compete in those type of environments to really get this team to where it ultimately wants to go. It does not have to happen in 2023, sooner the better, but just knowing what the long-term view needs to be.
Right.
Speaking of scoring points and offense, should note that Matt Canada, as far as we know it, at 10:29 a.m. on Monday, January 16th, remains a Pittsburgh Steeler. No reported change in his status there. I believe that Jerry Dulac also confirmed that Canada is under contract through 2023. So if this thing's going to happen at all in terms of him being fired, and those odds seem to be diminishing by the hour, by the day, you would expect it to be today. Didn't happen on Friday. My thought was right after the season ended that it wouldn't happen immediately. If it was going to happen, it would be either a Friday or maybe a Monday thing, but there's been no hints or reports or rumors at all about a firing, a dismissal of Matt Canada. So I'm now really working under the assumption and bordering on expecting Matt Canada to return next season.
How much do you read into Mike Tomlin saying we're not going to, in so many terms, so many words saying, we're not going to rush through this and all, but within that, I mean, you got teams, now getting eliminated from the playoffs, and what are the coordinator changes going to look like? Boy, Ravens fans, you want to talk about? I think they're wanting Roman run out of town as of this morning. But you look if Huntley, it's so much. How much can one play make a difference, right? If
Sure.
Huntley doesn't fumble that. And they hold on to win, they're obviously getting ready for another playoff game. There's no even talk, about Roman being run out. And obviously you didn't have Lamar Jackson and you're on, you're obviously your backup quarterback in that situation there. And, their offense is kind of, run kind of the same way with, they don't change up a lot between those two quarterbacks there. So, within all that, it feels like, this is, kind of technically the second Black Monday of the month, right? Or postseason, right?
Yeah, we'll see if more firings happen. What happens to Brandon Staley in Los Angeles and Greg Roman, the OC in Baltimore, and whatever other surprises may be in store. So I know that, this will also be the week where you may see some teams that already fired their head coaches last week begin to put together their coaching staffs. Maybe later this week, you get some hirings come in with the couple of vacancies out there. So there'll be a lot of moving and shaking, but is your expectation and assumption the same as mine, where you're now believing that Matt Canada will be back next year?
If he makes it past 5 Eastern time today, it really, the probability, you think the win factor for Steelers fans goes way down, I think, at that point. So, I really do think that if he makes it past 5 today, it's You look at the timeline, right? I posted that over the weekend, even going back all the way through the Cowher era. Let me pull that up real quick. Well, I think for the dates alone, I only had with Arians and Randy and all like that. Let me see if I can pull that up real quick here. But I think the latest one of the bunch was Arians. Let's see here. Right. January 20th, 2012. Man, that seems like, it's still vivid in my mind. I remember that statement being released on Steelers.com talking about has decided, to retire. That happened on January 20th, 2012. And then the Todd Haley contract, quote unquote, not renewed on January 17th, 2018. The Randy Fichtner in 2021, January 14th, contract not renewed. And it just, here we are already on today's the 16th. It's been, a full week since the season ended. So, nothing says that they can't get to the middle of this week and pull the plug on it, but it feels highly unlikely.
Sure. Again, as you mentioned, the timeline for those, but besides Arians, that was a weird kind of specialty situation. But with Keith Butler, with Randy Fichtner, with Todd Haley, that came, between 3 to 4 to 5 days after the season ended. We're now past that point with Canada. Again, as you said, nothing prevents them from doing it on Wednesday, but it just seems like kind of bad business. And if you want to get a jump on your next OC with the Senior Bowl coming up and getting ready for the offseason, usually the sooner the better. Don't let this guy kind of hang around and then make this maybe late change if you're going to make one. So my calculation on Saturday, Dave, when I wrote an article saying that, it's Friday, Matt Canada's still here. Obviously, the improvement the second half of the season from a more efficiency standpoint, a much better run game, finding an identity. The points weren't always there, though. There was some improvement there as well. And then I think their thought is they don't want to fire an OC, bring in a new OC, and then go through the growing pains of having a new OC for the first month of 2023 when they just went through all the growing pains in 2022 and then finally made some progress in the back half of the season. They don't want to kind of go back through that again to maybe a lesser extent, but still dealing with all the, nuances of having a new coordinator and gelling and getting his offense down and terminology and all that kind of stuff. So I think they just want to keep things constant, knowing how intact this offense is going to be from this past year into next year.
Yeah, that certainly makes sense.
And plus, they just don't fire. I think they just don't fire coordinators. They just literally do not do that. So that's just kind of keeping in the Rooney ways.
All right. We'll obviously see. That's not going to make a lot of people happy. It goes without saying, right?
Right. One coach who may be on the move is Brian Flores. Now, we know he's interviewed for the Cleveland Browns DC job. That has not been officially filled by the team. The Arizona Cardinals have requested to interview him to be their head coach. I don't think that's been officially a date on him accepting and any sort of timeline for when that interview could take place. And then over the weekend, Josina Anderson reporting the Atlanta Falcons requested an interview to interview Brian Flores for their defensive coordinator position. And so now we know it's Cleveland and then potentially Arizona as a head coach and Atlanta as a DC. So Brian Flores generating plenty of interest this coaching cycle.
Yeah, the Flores World Tour, I think, and I don't think that's going to be it. What's going to happen in Minnesota? There let you a lot of talk after that game against the Giants on when was it Sunday about they're probably going to need a new defensive coordinator over there. So I don't know how quick of a decision how this thing will wind down as far as the time frame goes, but I don't think this is the last time that we're writing or talking about an interview being scheduled with him.
Yeah, now it's just a question of will he just be the guy that gets a bunch of interviews and not hired, or will he actually get an offer and go somewhere else? And again, I think Cleveland is a pretty decent chance of that happening. Arizona is a head coaching opportunity. They're going through their process as they, fire Cliff Kingsbury. It's probably a little less likely there, but we'll just have to wait and see. So, it's hard to really gauge, what are the odds of him leaving, of him getting an offer, but obviously there's a chance, and the more teams that come calling, the higher those odds are.
Sure. And once again, remind everybody that there's no compensation there.
Right. No compensation, because A, you don't get compensation for coordinator hires, and B, even if, say, the Cardinals hired him to be their next head coach, Flores has to be with the Steelers for at least 2 years, or just 1 year, so there would be no compensation there. So we'll keep you posted. Should know at probably end the week about the Browns job and maybe one of these other jobs as well. So we'll let you know what the status of Brian Flores is. Dave,
Who would be the most who would be the most likely you think they'd promote within, or what? If you were to go somewhere.
I mean, I think they probably do nothing because Flores was kind of that unexpected hire. It was, given the situation last year of him being fired, suing the Dolphins, suing other teams, suing the NFL, and kind of being blackballed and ignored by the rest of the league, and Mike Tomlin wanting to give Flores a landing spot temporarily. I mean, he was working with Jerry Olsofsky as the off-ball linebackers coach. Olsofsky's still here, to my knowledge, and so they may not really add anybody. It was just kind of a last second. Even Tomlin admitted that he was talking with Flores initially just as a friend to kind of give some general counsel to, and then it kind of just suddenly turned into, hey, do you want to come here and work for us? So they wouldn't have to hire anybody to replace him.
Well, I can hear fans of the team now. Man, you do the guy a solid like that, he turns around and becomes the Browns defensive coordinator there.
It's just business, man. I mean, yeah. and we all knew this was a temporary thing. He wasn't going to be here for the next 5 years.
Yeah, exactly. I think some kind of envision him maybe somehow being the one that comes after Tomlin, but that was never realistic.
Right, and if he gets hired in Cleveland, it'll be him coming after Stefanski. That's the conversation's already happening in Cleveland right now. But and again, not firing Terrell Austin just to keep Brian Flores around for maybe just one more year. I mean, that just would be silly and morally dubious and not good for the team overall. Dave, over the weekend,
what do you think about Stefanski, real quick? I've always kind of liked the guy. I mean, is he over his head as far as the job requirements of a head coach, or is it just, man, they've got a mess over there with too many hands in the pile, kind of situation, and in other words, I mean, is he good head coach material?
Yeah, I think 2023 will be a big year with a full year of Deshaun Watson, no suspension. I think this year was a disappointment, even knowing what happened with Watson. I mean, they had a better quarterback and better quarterback play this year in Jacoby Brissett than what an injured Baker Mayfield gave them in 2021, and yet their record overall was worse. And so there's a mark on that. But yeah, I think Stefanski's done a good job. He's a good, bright offensive mind. He's still helped this franchise have some stability overall. I think certainly the Watson deal was probably mostly out of his hands and dictated towards him. And if Watson returns to form, then they're going to be a really competitive team. So he's got to win next year. He's probably got to get back to the playoffs and hopefully win a playoff game. That's likely their expectation. If that does not happen, then his job could be called into question. So really, I think next year kind of determines the fate of Kevin Stefanski.
Okay.
Devon Bush had a tweet speaking of coaches and playing for coaches over the weekend. And again, with the whole Deontay Johnson thing, that was so vague and just so, everybody's speculating that it was so silly to talk about. Devon Bush's tweet a lot more concrete. And let me pull it up here so I can read this one verbatim. It still wasn't 100% specific, but we can talk about it a lot more than I think we can about Deontay Johnson. Devon Bush tweeting, playing for a former NFL player with the thinking man emoji. And so Devon Bush, a free agent to be, sounds like he'd like to go somewhere where the head coach used to play in the NFL.
Boy, that thing blew up, didn't it?
Yeah, it was a pretty popular post on the site.
Look, I don't know how he's helping himself there. I really don't. I mean, this is a guy that before the season started really kind of downplayed the idea of him, it being a make. I think it was exactly kind of the question was, is this a make or break season for you? And he says, well, I'm still going to be in the NFL. Kind of I don't think he meant it to come out of his mouth like it did, but the way it came out of his mouth like it didn't sound all that great. And obviously this was, I think, back in training camp and all like that. But I don't see how he's helping himself with and once again, we don't know 100% the context, but it sure is hard to, to kind of think that isn't what it's kind of designed to be, right?
Well, my interpretation of that is just basically he's already thinking about his future outside of Pittsburgh because it's pretty clear the Steelers don't have plans for Bush to come back, and he probably doesn't have a lot of plans or desire to remain in Pittsburgh. So I think it's a small admission of both sides and really Bush looking to move on from Pittsburgh.
Right.
Because he won't be back. I mean, I can't see him being back in any way, shape, and form. Now, what coaches are currently what current coaches were playing the NFL? You have Doug Peterson in Jacksonville. You have Mike Vrabel in Tennessee. You have Dan Campbell in Detroit. We'll see if any other hires occur. Gerard Mayo, though, it seems like he's almost certainly going to stay in New England. But those are the three guys that played, had a fairly lengthy career. There were some others that played briefly, but those are kind of, to me, the big three that had pretty extensive football careers.
Look, I mean, it goes back to the final 2 weeks of the season and what the Steelers think about him.
Right.
You played 10 total snaps in the final 2 games in AFC North ball, and down the stretch, and you're putting and it's no disrespect to Mark Robinson, but I mean, you got a former first round draft pick in there that you've given lip service to, saying, oh, he's done fine. How many times was Mike Tomlin asked about him and gave an answer that we all kind of rolled our eyes at, when it comes to him, and in those final 2 games that you absolutely have to have, he gets, and obviously, scheme related, a lot of it in there. But the fact is that you have to scheme relate around a guy like that, and a guy that you didn't give a 5th-year option to. I mean, the writing's on the wall there. There's only one way that Devon Bush comes back to this team this offseason, and that's going to be on a 1-year deal for either something along the lines of a Terrell Edmunds or less deal that he got. And even then, it still feels very unlikely. That guy probably, can't wait to get out of town at this point. But within that, and as I posted on Twitter this morning, what's his market value? And if I am that coach and a former, or if I am that head coach around the league and a former NFL player, and there's a handful of them now, how am I looking at that now? And I mean, his market value right now has got to be, at tops, what, $3 million for 1 season? And that might be pushing it.
Yeah, that sounds about right. I hadn't given it much thought, just knowing that Bush isn't coming back, and it doesn't really matter what his market value is. He's not going to return to Pittsburgh, but there is going to be, he's still young. He's still a former first-round pick. That's going to hold some value. He's played football. He was better this year than last year. Does that mean a whole lot? No, but yeah, I would say 3 to 4 million sounds about right.
Once again, we would be surprised if he's back.
I'd be shocked. Again, it's not only, as you said, the guys playing ahead of Bush the final 2 weeks was a 7th-round rookie and an undrafted guy in Robert Spillane, and rightfully so. And again, some of that was schematic, Robinson being in the specialty packages. So, I don't want to say it's necessarily 1-to-1 Robinson taking Bush's spot, but he was obviously playing more snaps and was trusted more to play against the run, and against Baltimore, against Cleveland, against your rivals. And so that is, as you mentioned, the writing on the wall for Devon Bush.
Right.
Speaking of defensive free agents, on Friday's show, Dave, you and I went over the offensive free agents, a pretty uninspiring list overall. The defensive side, though, we'll go over today, and that's certainly a more attractive and more notable list here. And so you've done a great job to write these up over the last several days. You and I can talk about them now, starting with the biggest free agent to be of them all, cornerback Cam Sutton. I know we've talked about his future and status and market value, but to kind of go over it again, this is the one guy you don't want to lose, although it's going to cost a pretty penny to retain him.
Yeah, and it goes to both sides of the ball, right? When it comes to your unrestricted free agent list, this guy feels like the guy that you really got to focus on right here. And he has a contract that included voidable years. It's going to void, I think it's on like February 20th, like the week after the Super Bowl or something along those lines there. And people are asking, well, can they do something with that? prevent the $2.1 million in being dead in 2023. I mean, I haven't researched. I mean, you don't see a lot of that happen, period. So there's not a lot of working examples of it. But I would think that if they could do something before, either they push back the void date, which I don't see that happening, or they get something done before the void date to try to rip something up in there and do something that way. But even so, I would be less concerned about the dead money aspect of it, the 2.1 million. Then I'd be less worried about that than I would be about can they get something done with him, because even if the contract voids on time in February 20th or whatever the date is there, he's not going to be cut. It's not like he's out on the street. It won't be until March 15th before he becomes unrestricted. So you still have that extra, let's call it a month in there to get something done. The only question becomes is what's his market value? And you see in some of these lists now, it's that time of year where you see these lists circulate around ranking the soon to be unrestricted free agents around the league. And I think pretty consistently, Sutton's in the top 25. Is that what you're seeing? And I think at worst, he's like the number 3 cornerback, right?
Yeah, it depends on what publication you talk to, but he's generally in that top 25. I believe PFF had him the highest at number 17. I don't know how many corners were ahead of him. I can't think there were many, maybe 1 or 2, but he'll be, should he hit the market, one of the top guys.
I mean, it's a supply and demand situation when it comes to free agency too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That determines a large, chunk of what your value is, depending on the strength of the free agent class at quarterback, the strength on the draft class as well. Now, the corner class in the draft seems to be fairly strong this year, but still, just given his resume and the job he did this year, Sutton, as a really strong corner, had his best season by far, became a lot more comfortable playing on the outside. That alone is going to drive up his price.
I mean, are we talking top 15 average or higher because of market?
I'd have to look at the exact numbers. I mean, I think it's easy to say he'll be in double digits per year, at least 10 million. I know you've pegged it at higher than that, around 13. I don't know what top 15 is off the top in terms of pulling up the over the cap chart. I'd have to look, but I think 11 to 13 is probably about what he'll get.
All right, let's look at someone we got to see play on Sunday night, Marcus Peters.
Okay.
How would you compare? Marcus just he's been hurt this past year. He didn't seem to have his best game against Jamar Chase, but I mean, a lot of cornerbacks can probably say that right now at this point. I pull him out because he's I think he's, I don't know, what is he, about top 12, top 14, something like that, at 14 million per.
Okay, then I mean that probably sounds about right. Then Peters is, I think, a bit older. He's just turned 30. So it's not that old. So yeah, I mean that could be the number as well.
And I think I threw out, what did I say during the earlier a couple weeks ago, about 13.5 million or something like that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you had said about 13 in our conversation a while back.
All right, and the market right now is propped up by William Jackson III. His help being propped up by William Jackson III, who has a average value of 13.5. Funny how that one works out there. Man, Alex, I see it coming in somewhere between, I would say 14 to 16 and a half, maybe.
Okay. Now the question back to you is he worth that in Pittsburgh?
I mean, I guess the question, yeah, because what's the alternative?
Well, I think that's a bad way to give out contracts, to answer it that way. I understand your point, but I think it's a bad thing to say, well, what else are we going to do?
I think he is worth 13 and a half. Now, the question is he worth, if you're going to go 13 and a half, are you going to go 14? If you're going to go 14, are you going to go 16? And once again, it's the whole, what will the market push? He supply and demand aspect of it. I think at max, I'd push 15 at the max.
Okay.
I think he's worth that. And then once again, you're splitting hairs here, right? Well, if you're going to go 15, why wouldn't you go 16? Well, at some point, the next number becomes too high.
Sure. There's always a line. There has to be a line somewhere.
I would say, based on, man, he is so smart on the back end of that defense, and he's almost. I mean, he's a quarterback on that field, and if you will. So, and he's a heady player. He's not as splashy as a guy like, I don't know, who would you name as a real super splashy kind of, corner. Well, I mean, the young kid down there with the Jets. Sauce,
like a Sauce Gardner, or even Trevon Diggs, used to feast famine, creates a lot of picks, gets burned a lot. Sutton's a steady guy. I gotta go through the defensive charting this week. I know his quarterback rating against this year was super low. I mean, it was like a sub 50% completion percentage. I mean, this guy played really good football, especially the back half of the season.
Plain and simple. I'll leave it at this. I think 15 million is probably his right market value when it comes to the Steelers, and I think they will do everything in their power to try to make him to keep him in the fold.
I'm with you as well. His versatility, playing inside, playing outside, even rotating at safety, some of the inverted looks, cover 2, cover 3 looks they run, that allows Minka to be more free and move around, not be stuck in one spot. Just a lot of value there with Sutton. Low maintenance guy, available, improved as a tackler. He was not a good tackler coming out of Tennessee. He's really gotten better in that aspect. I mean, this guy wears every hat. Again, the only argument against it I've had is, despite how good of a season Sutton had, and I want to recognize that, is he really that true number one shutdown cornerback? And it's still hard for me to really get there, just knowing that athletically he's still kind of limited to go against Jamar Chase twice a year, or whatever the top receiver that you're going to face on a near weekly basis will be. And so will you pay a guy $15 million per year and say, well, we still got to go find a number one shutdown corner?
Well, yeah, I mean, if you don't have him, you better go do something, unless you're going to definitely build through the draft. And if he's already one of the top corners on the market, it makes sense to retain him.
Well, yeah, my point is, though, let's say you re-sign Cam Sutton, do you still kind of feel that you need that number one corner, or is Sutton really that number one lockdown guy like a Sauce Gardner? He's not in that camp to me.
Well, I mean, if you're asking, do I think they go out and get another corner on top of him in free agency? The answer is no.
Well, it's not necessarily that. It's just, do you feel like that's still a need for this team, even if you're not going to fill it this year? Like, okay, do you think Cam Sutton's a number one, like true number one type corner that can erase or match up against top receivers?
Well, he's not a guy that, if they re-sign him at that, I still don't think they let him travel,
Right. That's partially my point. So the answer to that's probably no, to answer that question.
Right. I mean, because they just, when's the last time we saw that happen?
Yeah, like Taylor, I guess, back in those days.
I would maybe consider it, but that's why there's really kind of a, where does the line get cut at,
Right. But my point is, let's say, would you pay a guy $15 million to not travel and not take on top receivers on a weekly basis?
How much would I pay?
Would you pay $15 million to have a guy not travel and not really be your true blue?
Yeah. Once again, I think his market value, whatever you do with him, is $15 million, period. End of story.
Sure. No, I get that. But it'll just leave me still wondering, do you have to go find another top level corner? Because is Sutton really that high end cover corner? He played really well this year, but that's always kind of a nagging thought I've had when it comes to Cam Sutton and to the Steelers secondary.
Well, here's the thing. I mean, if they go get him, they're not going to go get another one in free agency. So then it becomes, are you going to do it during the draft? Regardless, they need to take another shot in the draft. I don't think so. I don't think in the first round, but I think anything after the first round, they should take a shot at another corner.
Yeah, especially if you're going to dump a Keller Witherspoon, and with Jackson gone and Pierre being an RFA and depth behind that, being pretty meager, I would expect a corner to be drafted at some point.
Right.
All right, moving on.
I still don't know how you're trying to frame this, I guess, but
is Cam Sutton a shutdown cornerback? Yes or no? Putting aside market value, putting aside everything else, is he a shutdown corner?
he's not Sauce Gardner. No. So no.
Okay. Are you going to pay a guy $15 million to not be a shutdown corner?
Yes.
That's my point. Okay. That's the debate I've kind of had in my own head.
Where are you at it?
I want to bring the guy back for sure. And if I got to pay him, 13, 15, where do you draw the line? I don't know exactly where my line is at, but like I said, that's still a nagging thought I've had kind of in the back of my mind of, yeah, let's re-sign Cam Sutton. He's earned that money for sure. He brings so much value to this team, but is there something, are you kind of left wanting more in terms of you got to go find that guy? Like Sutton's an ideal number 2. You would love to have a true number 1 shutdown corner. Of course, those guys don't grow on trees. They're expensive, whether that's free agency or the draft. It just leaves me a little bit mixed, but I'm still largely in favor of re-signing Cam Sutton.
I mean, once again, might the shot be too high here at 15? I think 15. Once again, I've been throwing out 13.5 million, during the offseason. And then now, kind of looking at numbers, you look at a guy like Marcus Peters, and obviously William Jackson will be off the list here fairly soon. You got Travarius Ward over there with the 49ers at 13.5 there. Do you consider him a shutdown corner?
He had a really good year. I know he got burned, I think, in the playoff game. I don't think he's quite shut down status. It looks like 15 million would make him something the 11th highest paid cornerback per year. I'm looking at, I believe.
Yeah, let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, 11th. Yeah, right ahead of Carlton Davis.
Yeah, if you could get him at that, maybe Marcus Peters, if you could get him right above what Ward got last year at 14. I know we're kind of splitting hairs at this point. That would be a bit more ideal. You're right. He's probably not going to get less than Ward because Ward got paid in the offseason from the 49ers when he became a free agent from Kansas City. So, I would say probably 14 becomes that number for Cam Sutton.
Right. So I wasn't too far off from what I've been saying most of the offseason, which is 13.5 million. So
yeah,
we'll
we'll
see what it comes in. I mean, once again, I mean, if he does get away, then then what do you do?
Yeah, that's a great question, and hopefully a scenario Pittsburgh's not dealing with. By the way, Cleveland announcing they are interviewing Sean Desai for their DC job today, and so that's just notable, knowing they're still working through candidates before deciding. Again, Brian Flores interviewing last week, Jim Schwartz interviewing last week, but the Browns still going through their process, so probably no decision on their next DC for the next couple of days.
Okay.
Moving on now to free agents with Larry Ogunjobi, and to me, Dave, he might be one of the more polarizing free agents, with some people wanting him back, some people deciding to move on from him, a one and done type scenario, determining his market value. There's a lot of questions about what should happen, what will happen to Larry Ogunjobi.
Well, obviously, yeah, and that's the guy we talked a little bit about as well too. I mean, how impacted was he by the toe? Obviously, his age comes in play. He seems like he might be a free agency mercenary at this point. It's an interesting. I don't think he's worth the $8 million that he made this past season. I'll tell you that. Yeah,
I think he had his great moments in Pittsburgh where there was some really impressive plays. I thought he, being able to penetrate and get in the backfield and show some pass rush juice, that was important, but he just was a really inconsistent guy for me against the run. His get off, I think, is pretty hot and cold. Just a really up and down player overall. And so he brought some value. There's a lot of questions mark with the Steelers defensive line in terms of what do you have behind Ogunjobi. I can't pay this guy $8 million. I can't pay this guy on a long-term deal.
Right. What did I put in there? Let's see. I mean, he played about, what you wanted him to play, around 636 defensive snaps. But 1.5 sacks, you kind of envisioned him producing a little bit more in the sack category, 11 quarter. When it was good, he was whipping some guards, what's out there. But it just seemed like he ran hot and cold, just overall. And really, when you got into that second half of the season, it seemed to be more on the cold side, especially when he started showing up on the injury report regularly with, I think, the toe injury there. So I mean, at his age, I mean, I think you got kind of, it was kind of a gamble with him anyway, right? Because of the injury and having that contract fallout, because of not passing the physical with the Bears and get him on the 1 year. It sort of felt like a 1 year rental the whole time. And I have a feeling that this is the way this is going to play out. I mean, look, if you could get him back for $6 million or $5 million or something along those lines, yeah, have at it. But I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah, I think he's going to be 29. He had the knee last year, had this toe this year. Anything long-term, more than 1 year, gets really concerning. But there was a good question about his market value. I kind of had the thought the other day about 7-8 million, about what he got this year in Pittsburgh. He did only have 1.5 sacks, though. And I know that's not the end-all, be-all in terms of sacks. And I think his pass rush pressure was probably better than what that number indicates. But you come off 1.5 sack season, typically your market value is not going to be as strong as it was coming off your 7 sack season as it was last year with the Bengals.
Yeah, and once again, it was a bit surprising to see them do that deal with him in the manner that they did last offseason, because 1 year with a cap hit that high, kind of was uncharacteristic for them. Now, can they obviously massage the cap this year and do something with 1 year $6 or $7 million number? Absolutely, they could. It felt right from the moment they signed him last year that it was probably going to be a one and done situation. Once again, I think Ogunjobi's going to look at it like this too. This might be the final bite of the apple that I get here.
Right.
This free agency, and he almost took a big chunk out of it, earlier in the offseason there. I think he's going to be, continue to be a mercenary here, and I think he'll be on his, what would it be, his fourth team in 4 years?
Yeah, I guess so. 2020 with Cleveland, 2021 with the Bengals, 2022 in Pittsburgh. So I guess Baltimore. He's got to go to Baltimore to finish off the AFC North, slate there. But yeah, I think he'll want that long-term deal because he won the long-term deal last year. That fell through. And as you said, probably his last chance to get it at decent money. And I don't want to do a long-term deal with Ogunjobi, just given his age, the injuries, and just, I think that's a contract you would come to regret.
I mean, yeah, I guess it comes. I mean, would you do 2 year, $12 million with him?
Yeah, I really wouldn't. I would just move on. I think there's too much risk there in terms of the hot and coldness of his play. But I also understand you lose him, your defensive line's looking pretty shallow.
Right. Yeah, it is. And look, I mean, you probably haven't moved off this yet. It just feels like they have got to invest on the defensive side of football via the draft early this year, regardless of what happens here. And boy, it would be more so if they don't get a guy like him back, because once again, there's more names on the list. So Wormley's one of them on the list here that we're going to be talking about. Tyson Alualu. So let's continue on through the list here, I guess.
Okay, we'll go next, just going down the order in which you wrote about them. Terrell Edmonds, strong safety, brought back on that 1 year deal for super cheap right before the draft last year. A very good return on investment. Edmonds having a solid season. His general self being we played the box more this year, but strong safety, good tackler, stops the run. Not going to make a ton of plays in the football, but maybe a couple more this year than he had in years past. Not going to be a splash play, not going to take the football away kind of guy, but a good compliment to Minkah Fitzpatrick, a guy we both talked about wanting to bring back. Determining market value, a little tricky. Will not break the bank. It's just kind of a question of he should get more than last year. Just how much is that question?
I'd try to bring him back at that same number or whatever you can on maybe a decreased salary cap. I think he's played well enough that those kind of deals will still be out there for him. The $3 million or less deals out there. But on the flip side, does he really want to leave? And he experimented last year. He probably thought his market value, he probably thought he'd probably get, better offers than he did. He ended up coming back and That was one of those interesting. I'm trying to remember what the parameters were of that deal. That was one of those that had kind of the vet credits or something attached to it in the CBA that made his deal even cheaper. I'm trying to remember the aspects of that.
His base salary was 2.385, according to Over the Cap.
Let's see. The base value of his contract was 2.5375. That is made up of a base salary of 2.385 and a signing bonus of 100. It was basically had kind of the same parameters of what they called it is a 4-year player qualifying contract. That's what it's stated. A 4-year player qualifying contract under this benefit is a 1-year deal, and this was this past year with a base salary of up to $1.35 million more than the minimum base salary for said player. A maximum signing bonus of $152,500 maybe also be given as part of that qualifying contract. So that's how that kind of played out there. Now, I'll have to look at the aspects of it. I think he would once again be eligible for another one of these 4-year player qualifying contracts because you have to have at least 4 years credited seasons, or accrued seasons to be able to qualify for that. So might he be a candidate to use that tool once again? Obviously, the base salary would be a little bit higher, but there still would be kind of a discount that goes along with that. If they could get that done with him, have at it, man. That's certainly the way I would go with him, because that still would not prevent you from drafting a young, strong safety or someone potentially overtaking him through the season. So if you're going to bring him back, that's the parameters I would do it on.
At some point, though, this guy's going to want to get paid. I mean, he's not been paid a lot of money. He's hit free agency now. This will be his second time. I mean, at some point, you got to pay this guy something. He's played well. He's done everything that you've asked him to do. He's durable. He's available. He's a good fit for the system. I'm not saying he's going to get big money, but he's got to at some point say, hey, you got to pay me, something above these cheaper, benefit type deals.
Well, go find it and bring it back to us and show us.
I think that's what happened last year because he was on the market for a long time. He had other offers, but I assume nothing that good considering how cheaply Pittsburgh got him. But the guy's still, 25, 26? I mean, he is the oldest 25, 26-year-old in football, just given the snap counts that he's played and how long he's been in the NFL. Yeah, that dude is turning 26 in a couple of days. So, what that number is, I don't know. It'll be similar to last year, but I think he's gotten incrementally better every single season, and a 2-year deal worth, I don't know, $6.5, $7 million doesn't seem out of the question for me.
Yeah, but I want to make sure. Well, yeah, and you would do that deal obviously where if you had to part ways, it could be done after this season. So you have to be careful with the guaranteed money in that. So it's not out of the question to do something along those lines that puts, I don't know, $3.5 million in his pocket with base and signing bonus combined together. This year, I mean, let's say if you did, could you do a 2-year, $7.5 million deal with him with $4 million going to him? Somebody write this down. I'm going to probably be right about this. With about $4 million coming to him in 2023 via base salary and signing bonus. So in other words, you're looking at, I don't know, let's say whatever a minimum base salary would be for him, probably right along the lines of a little more than $1 million on him. And let's say a $3 million signing bonus. So that would put his cap hit around, I don't know, $2.5 million, $2.5 to $2.75 million. But yet it would put $4 million in his pocket in 2023. And then if you needed to, you could, cut him next offseason at some point for, $1.5 million dead.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think That makes a lot of sense. And obviously the market dictates what he's going to get. But from his standpoint, yeah, he at least probably he would like to have the illusion of security instead of these 1 year deals every single year. Don't know what your status is going to be. Don't know where I'm playing next year. Don't know where I can kind of feel like I can try to put down roots. Even understanding a 2 year deal isn't really going to give him security, but it's at least a multi-year deal he hasn't gotten that kind of makes it feel like, okay, maybe I have a home in this place instead of this constant 1 year deal. Okay, I'm kind of always peeking towards what things will look like next off season. So I think that'd be good for him and good for Pittsburgh as well to have that flexibility of not having to play this. Is he staying? Is he going game every year?
I mean, what is his average yearly value worth? 2.5 million, 3 million? Because if it's 3 million, then it had to be obviously a 2 year, $6 million deal with, let's say, good for, well, once again, if you did two for 6, he'd probably still want 4 million of it in 2023 via signing bonus and base. So is he worth $3 million per year, I guess, is a question.
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, given the way the cap is, it's a very small percentage of the cap. I think 2 years, 7 million to me sounds about right for Edmonds, somewhere around there.
Here's where I closed out the paragraph on him. I think there's a decent chance he's back for at least one more season.
I think so too. Really, there's no guarantee of that, but the question will be, will there be a second Edmonds brother with him? And based on the way that Tremaine played yesterday, his price just went way up because he had a heck of a game against the Dolphins.
Then you look out on the heels of our Roquan Smith deal and just once again, supply and demand I mean, will the Bills even just, decide to franchise tag him?
They could, yeah.
A lot of people getting all hyped up about, the other Edmonds coming to town, but he's got to get the market first.
Right. That's what I've been telling people. I don't know if Buffalo wants to break that great defense they have up, but his price certainly went up based on yesterday's play.
Okay.
By the way, C.J. Stroud of Ohio State officially declaring for the draft. So did Jordan Addison. Today's last day for players to declare. Stroud pretty late in the process, but he is officially entering the 2023 NFL draft.
Okay.
All right, moving on. Devon Bush, as we talked about, really can't see him coming back under any circumstances. A first-round pick that did not work out. His play a bit better this year than last, but you just move on. Didn't work out, and don't try to hang on to that mistake.
Yeah, we've already beat that one up pretty good there. So let's, I don't think he's back. You don't think he's back. I don't think he should be back. Not many people think he should be back. Time to just cut your losses and move on. Let's go to the next one on the list.
Robert Spillane, and that's a guy we've talked about some already. A lot of, pending free agents in that inside linebacker room this year with Bush and Spillane and Marcus Allen. Spillane's a guy that I do expect to come back based on that trust that the coaching staff has in him, the every down role that he carried towards the end of the year. And despite Pittsburgh's best efforts to always try to find somebody else to start over Spillane by year's end, Spillane always wiggles his way back into the starting lineup. The subject of my terrible take today, I think he's back.
Yeah. Here's the thing. We just talked about what a guy like Edmonds' market value is. And you would think Spillane's is slightly higher than Edmonds. Obviously, two different positions here, but I know a lot of people are wanting to cut Miles Jack. We'll see if that actually happens or not. I mean, if they were to part with Miles Jack, I got a funny feeling that wouldn't happen before March 15th. And if it didn't happen on March 15th, I think the probability of them lasting highly grows considerably at that point. But it already feels like Devon Bush is going to be out the door. Even though Marcus Allen was on this roster last year, he never played it down. He's a guy we're going to talk about here in a minute here. So it's not like you even consider him for a linebacker role anyway. You got a young kid, a Mark Robinson, that you're still trying to figure out there. Robert Spillane is a guy that you know what you're getting in there. So does he have a lot of warts? Absolutely. Can he still play downhill and play against the run? Absolutely. Is he a guy that you want out there getting ate up lining up in the slot or in zone, getting ate up in coverage 5 times a game? Absolutely not. But he can still give you some special team snaps as you kind of develop maybe some of these younger guys here. Is he a guy that, long story short, can he hang on for you here? And will you bring him? What is his market value? It feels like it's around $4.5 million, Alex, per.
I think it's less than that. I think his value to Pittsburgh is going to be higher than any other team, just because of how much trust they have in him and just what they've been able to kind of see the intangible side of Spillane. Now, I think he's worth more than the minimum. I think he's probably going to be a 2.5, $3 million per kind of a guy. But he's not a long-term answer. But at worst, he'd be a number 3 that would rotate in and be next man up when an injury strikes.
Is he worth $3.5 million per?
Yeah, I'm trying to think about the conversation we had, I think, last week or 2 weeks ago. Again, just very general, off the top numbers. 2 years, $6 million. I think in some sense, Edmonds could be worth more just because he's, guaranteed to be almost guaranteed to be your starting strong safety if he does re-sign. He's a bit younger and just more athletic at I don't have more premium positions, the right word, but I would probably say for Spillane, like 2 years, $6 million.
I mean, he's one too. Like Evans probably wants some semblance of possible security, albeit that if he did come back, if he is re-signed this offseason, I mean, you hate to look too far ahead, but it feels like you've maybe done something wrong if he has to still be on the roster in 2024. But long story short, I think there's a real strong chance he's back.
Yeah, I'd be shocked if he wasn't, because you can't lose Bush, and Allen's not a defensive piece regardless of what happens. And Miles Jack is kind of future's a bit in doubt. It wasn't a great year for him. You can't lose all those guys and lose Spillane and kind of just trust Mark Robinson to make it work, or then you have to go spend a high draft pick on somebody with other needs and trying to build this thing inside out. Spillane, I don't want to call him a must resign, but actually I think it's kind of close to that term.
And you've eaten him up a few times on some tape.
I've what?
Eaten him up a few times on how he's been used in coverage and all like that.
Yeah, I mean, I've always kind of been a bit confused about his dime usage. I think we all kind of have. I understand I've answered my own question, I guess, by saying they trust him. He's smart. He's a good tackler. There's just a lot of trust in those moments they probably don't have with a Devon Bush type. So that's why Spillane's gotten the nod there, and he may continue to be in that role based on what else happens this year. But Spillane provides a lot of value, and if the worst thing he is your number 3 that rotates in when an injury strikes, again, Spillane by year's end always finds a way. Whenever this team tries to replace Spillane with a Joe Schobert or a Miles Jack, he's always kind of just beating those guys out by the end of the year.
All right, so far we got Cameron Sutton. We think is going to come back. Edmonds, we think is coming back, and Robert Spillane, we think is coming back.
Will DeMonte Casey come back? And
Man,
if Edmonds is coming back, but if Edmonds is coming back, is Casey going to want to come back as well? Is the question.
I don't know. I need to probably do a better job, maybe checking my heart at the door at this one.
You send contracts to them at the same exact time. Don't tell the other that the other's getting a contract, and then they both just wacky sitcom type stuff.
Well, I mean, you laugh about that, but look what you did last year with the 2 cornerbacks in Witherspoon and Levi Wallace. I mean, man, it'd be nice to have both those guys back in that defense for one more year. It really would. It really would. But Casey probably helped it, even though it was a half a season. It feels like he helped his value, Sure. I think he was a nice fit in that puzzle. And, are they going to get lucky here that he only played half a season? I mean, ideally, obviously, as a fan coming in, the way he played in training camp, the preseason, made you really start getting excited about maybe what he could offer this team on the defensive side of football. And obviously the forearm injury happened, sideline surgery, all yada yada. But and then his return to the field coincided with that of Watts. And man, this defense was, and I know the competition involved and all like that, yada yada. But this defense really played well in the second half of the season. I would do everything in my power to bring him back.
Yeah, I mean, I think you would like to. Really valuable in dime packages. That kind of became his role whenever he did return as that 6th defensive back. He played. It was Edmonds was playing kind of as that dime backer role in that dime package the back half of the year, and Casey was kind of playing the strong safety role, but a lot of rotation there, some versatility, a good energy guy, a good tackler, plays the run, fills the alley, and has good hands. This guy was a ball hawk coming out of college and had that great interception on Watson in week 18. So there's a lot of value there. He's not going to cost much. It just kind of, is he going to look for maybe a better opportunity, or will he try to come back and compete for, in theory, compete for the job, but probably be a sub package player in Pittsburgh? It's possible. He is 30 though, with some injuries. He's got, torn Achilles a couple of years ago. I mean, There's an age thing you kind of worry about, but if he does return it, it should be on a 1-year deal. So there's not a lot of risk involved from Pittsburgh standpoint.
All right. Is he back or no?
You're making me answer this one now in January. Yeah, I'll say he's back. I think he enjoyed his time in Pittsburgh and probably appreciates, getting the opportunity. And I doubt there's, the safety market's never that hot to begin with for a 30-year-old safety that was a sub-package player missing half the year. It's not going to be like this team's beating down his door to go sign.
Right. That's where I kind of circle back to. I said, maybe they end up catching a break here because he only played a half a season. Because had he played a full season, what could he have done had he played a full season? I mean, this guy's tackling was on point, man. And that says a lot in that secondary. Yeah, I think he's back somehow, some way. Even if you have to give matching kind of offers to him and Edmonds, it sure would be nice not to have to address the safety position in the draft. Bring in a couple unrestricted kids or something like that to maybe compete for special team spot or something like that. Because look, I mean, you got Killebrew. What does he really give you? He's a special teams ace, even though he's listed as a safety. Norwood, the jury's still really, really out for him. He's more of a free safety anyway. And this would certainly sure up your strong safety spot, at least for this next season. Now, if you did go via the draft, the position, you would think it'd be more of a strong safety spot, and you could probably get one of those around 4th, 5th round, something along those lines. I don't know, but I think he's back when the smoke clears from where we sit right now.
Last thought. I mean, if hypothetically you re-sign both Edmonds and Casey, you'd have a safety room next year of Minka, Edmonds, Casey, Norwood, Killebrew, and Elijah Riley, right? He's carried over because he got promoted, so he's under contract, correct?
Right, but you could probably get him back to the practice squad,
Right, but I'm saying, like, you probably don't have to even add really any safeties outside of a undrafted player. Like, your room is kind of set if you can do all those things. Now, I could see Casey as a guy that probably sits in the market for a little bit, like Edmonds last year, and just kind of waits and sees what's out there. Maybe if an opportunity pops up at some point. He didn't sign with Pittsburgh until literally the end of the draft last year. It was right after day 3 ended. Like an hour later, he signed. So I don't think it would take that long. I could see him testing, wanting to see what's out there, and then maybe 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, coming back to Pittsburgh.
Sure. And obviously the longer he waits, the more the price goes down.
Right. So, but a guy Pittsburgh, I think, would like to have back for that sub package value. Chris Wormley next on the list, and he was, not going to be in line for a huge payday, but a guy that I would have felt pretty strongly about wanting to bring back this year. And he tears his ACL in week 14 against the Ravens, and now the injury kind of throws a big wrench into those plans.
Man, you got to feel bad for that guy. And that guy's, you want to talk about some of these guys that not drafted by the Steelers, but they wind up with the Steelers, that they end up, after a couple of years, you look at him and say, man, that guy's a quintessential Steeler. He gets it, every aspect of it. And he was having an okay season before he went down. What was it? Week 14 non-contact against the Ravens there. All of this is obviously going to be decided on his rehab, and this thing is going to go way into the summer. It's not going to be a rush with him whatsoever. A backup coming off of a knee injury, what could his max value possibly be? The answer is not much. I think they re-sign him. I think it's just a matter of when that happens. It might be closer to the start of training camp, and even so, he is a guy that might start off training camp on the active PUP list, and then he might even have to start the regular season on the reserve PUP list. He's kind of on that time cusp of will he be ready or not. obviously every person is different here. Long story short, I'd bring him back on a 1 year minimum value veteran benefit deal with the max signing bonus. I'm allowed to get to that, and then I think he probably would take that at this point.
Yeah, I don't think you can give him any more than that, unfortunately, just given the injury, just based on he's getting older, a defensive lineman with a bad knee. You're not feeling great about that. If that does happen, it's probably like a June signing after OTAs,
Right.
just based, as you said, kind of checking in on the knee. It's not going to be something that happens anytime soon. And then I doubt he'll be ready for week 1. So I think he becomes a pup guy that tries to come back, kind of becomes the Casey of next year, where you get him back midway through the year and he would be an asset to you. But beyond that, I mean, it is 1 year minimum salary benefit. That is the only path I could see him coming back.
Yeah, and I think he will be back on that. He don't want to go anywhere, I don't think, at this point.
Yeah, I don't think so. But really unfortunate, because had he been healthy, wasn't going to get paid a lot, but would have gotten paid, something as a strong rotational backup. He's a very technical player. His technique improved this year. The sacks were down. He lost out to Ogunjobi, but solid against the run and kind of a crafty pass rusher as well. Not a super great athlete, but uses his hands exceptionally well. Can play up and down the line. So just unfortunate for him.
Right.
Tyson Alualu, it seems like end of the line for him. A great career. Should not overlook how good of a career he had, how durable he was until all the lower body injuries, the knee, the ankle hurt him the last couple of seasons, and became a really valuable guy, initially replacing Hargrave at nose tackle. I was watching, I'm going down a rabbit hole here, so I apologize, but I was watching, what was it, 2020 week 1 highlights against the Giants. I was just watching Alualu just destroy that Giants center. It was some young guy they had back then, just making plays all game. Had some really good reps in Pittsburgh, but this past year, coming off the injuries, just looked like a shell of himself. Remember him getting flattened against Atlanta. It's not a question of free agency. He's just going to retire.
I think so as well too. And I was worried about him, just the overall health, because kind of the the knee issue way back in camp, and him coming off of the ankle injury from 2021. I mean, you got to take your hat, as Hines Ward say, you got to take your hat off and hand it to him. He played all 17 games overall, and for a guy his age, 35, and his weight and the amount of snaps, I mean, he's been a durable guy. The problem is that he was not that 2020 guy. In 2022, he's got a family. He's real family orientated. This is it. This has to be it for him. It just absolutely has to be it for him.
It is. Lost his job to Adams midway through the year. We get the picture. He's going to retire. Great career, but it's time.
Right.
Malik Reed. Not a great trade. Not
we tried to tell him.
Omar Khan's still kind of nets win, or how do you want to say this? Net wins based off the Chase Claypool deal. But there's been some stinker of a trades with Malik Reed and William Jackson, not getting anything on him, trading a guy for a bet with a bad back. But Malik Reed should not be back, will not be back. Just small edge rushers in Pittsburgh do not work. You cannot have small guys on the edge in Pittsburgh. Has not worked, has never worked. Did not work with Malik Reed.
I mean, it'd be one thing if he could play the run or something too, but he couldn't. He can't play that AFC North ball, if you will, and really didn't give you much. You get what was one of the main things that we both talked about right after signing, man, get swallowed up by these tackles. It seems
he's
like
small. He's a small guy.
And that's what happened. And I think we had one emailer of the show hit us like 2 or 3 weeks in a row saying you guys are going to be sorry talking down about Malik Reed like that. There is no way in God's green earth they should. And he doesn't even give you anything on special teams either, really.
Right.
So that's another aspect. I mean, at least if he had 58 snaps on special teams in total, if you're going to be a number, that's why Jameer Jones was dressing and he wasn't. And technically Jameer Jones was the number 4 on the depth chart here. I mean, if you're not going to be that guy on the edge, then you damn sure be able to play special teams. And he just couldn't do that. They just need to let him ride off into the sunset.
Now, I do think his pass rush got slightly better as the year went along. There were some holding calls that seemed to be missed against him, but, and I understand he was a guy that was traded late, trying to catch that moving train. I know the systems were similar, but it's still new team, new system, new coaching, new verbiage. You kind of felt to maybe settle in a little bit midseason, but the run defense was never there. And as you said, inactive against both games against Baltimore. I mean, that just says it all right there.
Right. And the final one against Cleveland.
Right. With the Marvin Leal getting some looks as that kind of big hybrid type player. Reed should not be back, and I do not expect him back next season.
We both have begged them the last 2 seasons to properly address, the outside linebacker position, and Ingram to some degree, unfortunately that, crapped out by the trade deadline and all like that. But Reed certainly wasn't the answer.
Yeah, I think we've talked about Leal, I think, needing to potentially be that answer to plug some of that. But failing that, this team has to draft somebody that has a real longer commitment instead of these 1-year deals and trades and trying to piece this thing year by year. Get a more solid guy, because the position's too important. The injuries you've had to that position the last 2 years, you got to be 3 deep at that outside linebacker.
This is absolutely has to be the year now that somewhere between the 1st and 4th round, you go out and get you another ass kicker that can play outside linebacker.
Right. Unless you're going to commit to Leal being kind of your number 3. If you do that, then I think it lessens the need. Doesn't eliminate it, but lessens it. But if you're not going to commit to that, then you got to go with a high priority pick. All
right. The next 2 should be fairly easy.
Yep, Marcus Allen, who injured there, placed on IR to end the year with a biceps injury on that left arm. Quality special teamer, up back. I mean, his role, don't want to overlook that, but if he does come back, it'll be for really cheap. And obviously, he's best known or worst known for his little sideline celebration against the Carolina Panthers.
Look, the notion that he's been able to stick around this long. Yeah, good for him. But he is a special teams player only at this point. You're not going, we saw the zero defensive snaps. He logged 230 total special teams snaps. Could do without all the shenanigans, of course. But I don't think he's a bad kid. I just think he's made some bad decisions on the field, especially in that game against the Panthers there. The only way he comes back is a veteran benefit contract, and that's with no guarantee that he sticks around past week 1. That's the only way he comes back.
Yeah, and with you 100%, Dave. If he does go somewhere else, you will need to find a new up back, certainly replaceable, but something to replace, and also a new training camp DJ, because that was Marcus Allen's role. So that's a very important role to have, the training camp DJ and stretch line. Next up here, and I believe last on the list here, is Carl Joseph, who has hung around this team for a little bit. He's played 2 defensive snaps, I think, last year it was, and then got hurt in the preseason opener and went on IR. So that's Carl Joseph. Or was he on IR? Or what was the situation?
Yeah, he went to IR.
Okay.
He was spent the entire 2022 season on IR after, I think it was
it's opening kickoff, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was like 2 plays or 1 play or 2 plays into preseason there, and he was already walking off, and he never came back again. And
we saw the aircast, and we knew.
Right.
That's that.
Look, this ship has sailed.
Yep, former first-round pick. But Pittsburgh loved him coming out. Probably would have drafted him if they could have way back when. Reunited with him years later, but injuries, age, don't need Carl Joseph.
Right. All right. That's the list. So the defensive ones we think really like the chances of coming back: Sutton, Edmonds, Spillane. I think we're both on Casey.
Yeah, we'll give the nod to Casey.
And Wormley.
Yes, although don't count on him making an impact anytime soon.
All right, and what were we on the offensive side of the football guys coming back? Gentry, like the chances of him.
Let me pull up the list here. Yeah, we'd like the chances on Gentry, Derek Watt. We're kind of indifferent, I guess, on Watt, but certainly that could happen.
Boykin.
Right. Snell. Were you yes on Snell? I was yes on Snell. For cheap.
For cheap. I think he could. I would have him back for a minimum. I certainly would have him back on a veteran benefit contract if I could.
Yeah, I would do that. And then the offensive lineman, Trent Scott. I think I was a little bit higher on Trent Scott and a little higher on Jesse Davis, but it's 6 of one, half dozen the other.
Right. In totality, where your money is most likely to get spent here, or cap dollars most likely to get spent here would be a little bit on Gentry, if you brought him back, and obviously Sutton. The rest of the guys, really, you're not gonna. I mean, you can have 6 or 7 of these guys ultimately re-sign, and it not kill you from a cap perspective. You know it.
Yeah, it would not.
And that's usually what they do, right?
Right. I mean, it seems to be unchanging under Omar Khan, who was running the cap before he became officially the team's GM. Now, if the team does re-sign Larry Ogunjobi, that'll cost a little bit of money.
Right.
But we're kind of hedging against that right now.
Right.
So, yeah, it'll be, again, just to recognize it's the first full offseason for Omar Khan and Andy Weidel. So really excited to kind of see how they approach things and probably shake up this roster a little bit. But, certainly paying more attention in free agency in terms of guys re-signing or not to the defense, because that has a lot more bigger names than what the offense is offering.
Right.
All right, Dave, anything else you want to talk about in today's show? I think we covered it pretty well. Anything else on your mind?
Yeah. Real quick. I'm going to write up, some potential, salary cap clearing, salary casualties, I guess, if you will, here probably in the next 24, 48 hours. Thoughts on Miles Jack at $8 million?
Yeah, I'm basically with you, where I think he's carried at least through the offseason, and you take him to camp just knowing you're losing other guys there, and Bush and Marcus Allen. Even if you resign, I'm not giving you much, but I don't see him as a guaranteed lock to be with this team week one. I just, the injury that he battled, somebody, and I know the groin impacted him pretty heavily the back half of the year, and even before then his play was okay, it wasn't great. So yeah, I don't think he'll be cut. He could be, but there's enough you can trim elsewhere with Jackson, with Trubisky, with Witherspoon potentially, that you don't really feel compelled to cut Miles Jack.
At the very least, survives past March 15th, right?
That's my expectation right now. Yes, I'm not going to guarantee that. If there's a scenario where you could argue him being cut, but given the other losses there, I think Jack stays for a little bit.
One other real quick. A lot of people seem to want Chikwama Okorafor run out, but I don't see that happening.
No, I don't either. I'm no big, giant Chikwama Okorafor defender. I think he's been pretty maxed out for the last 2 years. He's an average right tackle, but the team signed him. His play was fine, and he should be back.
And if you are gonna run him out, he's got a $4 million roster bonus due on I think March 22nd or 20th or something like that, not too long after the start of the new league year. So they would have to make a decision on him pretty quick on that. And I'm with you. I don't see it happening there. I think the names that you're really discussing as salary cap casualty guys, obviously William Jackson III. I think Mitch Trubisky is a guy that you really got to look long and hard at. And I think Akella Witherspoon is another guy there. I think those are the three names that you're really playing with here. Now, look, you can get later on into this. It doesn't make sense to cut a Gunnar Olszewski on March 15th with the roster displacement of $750,000 from the. I mean, you say $1.25 million to cut a player that who knows how injuries might go.
Right. Yeah. Even knowing this is kind of not working out the way the team envisioned, you probably still carry him as a just in case policy. He may not make the week one roster. He may, create space right before camp or right before the season starts, but not someone I'm expecting to be cut, prior to the start of the new league year.
But there's nobody else you'd add to that list of the three, right?
I don't think so. What other names could you even suggest at this point? I can't really think of. I'd have to go through the whole list, but yeah, I mean, I don't know what other candidates there even would possibly be.
Yeah, I mean, we already talked about Miles Jack, but
beyond that,
I mean, there's really nobody.
Montravius Adams, I guess.
I mean, $2.5 million. Once again, you're already gonna have some guys probably walking out that door.
Sure. I'm just trying to find another name,
Right. I'm not saying that you might not get in a situation where come final cut down you might have a decision to make with Montravius Adams, but 2.5 minus $750,000 displacement cost at the bottom. I mean, you're not even at $2 million in cap savings at that point. You know, it's not practical decision to do it on March 15th.
No, I don't think it is, especially with the defense line concerns. Ogunjobi, Wormley, Alualu set to retire / potentially leave for free agency. It doesn't make sense. But if you wanted to try to really bottom of the barrel, come up with one more name, that's it. But yeah, I think that's like a 53-man roster cut in August type guy, as opposed to before March 15th.
All right, have we missed any to getting any of the topics on the list, Alex?
I just want to mention the draft profiles are back. Our first NFL draft profile for the season is up on Florida guard Osiris Torrance. That's one of Jonathan's guys. He loves those Gators, and so has the article on him. Scott Pavel has his first way too early top 40 big board. So if you guys love draft, and I know you guys do, you have a lot of draft stuff coming today, and really until the actual NFL draft takes place. We are now officially in draft mode, Dave.
Absolutely. And we're going to start powering these things out now, I think, right? You know?
Oh, yeah. There'll be more profiles tomorrow. They're already in the hopper. There'll be basically a profile at least one, essentially every single day from now until the NFL draft.
Right. Shall we get to some emails?
Yep. Let's get to a couple emails and close out today's show.
Arthur Elliott writes in 2 questions for you, Dave and Alex. What are your thoughts on some former Steelers coming back to help the Steelers in 23? The 3 names that come to mind are Javon Hargrave, Juju, and the Titans to release him for cap purposes, Bud Dupree. I'm just curious of what your take would be on the Steelers bringing them back and what their market values might be. Number 2, I'll start this by saying I think Kenny P is our guy, and I'm excited for the future of this team. That being said, I'm curious how many rookie quarterbacks who have started at least 10 games failed to have one game with multiple touchdowns, and if any of them went on to have successful careers. Well, I had to research that that second part of that question there. I understand, where you're coming from, Arthur, on the concern there. As far as question number 1, man, I mean, obviously, if they could get Javon Hargrave back, why wouldn't you? The question is are the Eagles going to let him get away? And if he is allowed to hit free agency, it's not like the Steelers would be the only guy interested in him either there. So, I mean, I'm having no issue with Javon Hargrave coming back to this team. And I don't think Alex would either. Juju, I think Juju's helped his cause this year, and good for him. And we'll see what happens during the rest of the playoffs here. This is money-making time right now. And I think he hit some of his incentives. I think he and right now you have to wonder, does Juju want to come back to the Steelers?
Yeah, sure.
With that said, we're doing these awards articles and all like that, and it's hard to turn your head at the player most missed by the Steelers this year. And yeah, Juju was hurt for a good portion of 2021 season and all like that. Man, that yards after the catch that Juju would provide in the slot and some of that blocking that was missed. Would I welcome Juju back if the price was right and all? Yeah, absolutely. I just have a feeling that's not going to happen. And as far as Bud Dupree, I think our own Jonathan Heitzert has got an article coming up on him. Yeah, he's probably going to be a cap casualty with Tennessee. The question is, man, that guy's 30. His best years are behind him. He doesn't play special teams. What are we looking at as a market value? Anything over $3 million, if you ask me right now, or $3.5 million would be a luxury for the Steelers when it comes to Bud Dupree. I guess the shorter answer is, would I mind any of these 3 coming back? The answer would be no. I wouldn't mind it. But in the same breath, obviously Javon Hargrave is going to be market, a hefty market price. With Juju and Dupree, it all come down to market price. In reality, I know there's going to be a lot of talk about this, Arthur, between now and March 15th. I don't think any of the 3 come back.
Yeah, I basically echo your thoughts 100%. I doubt Hargrave even hits free agency. I think the Eagles lock him up as quickly as they can. Juju would probably love to stay in Kansas City, and he probably will. Dupree almost certainly will get released by Tennessee. would I and to be clear, I'd love to have any of those, or I'd love to especially have Hargrave or Juju back. Dupree, I can kind of take it, leave it. You know, if he did come back, it would make sense. I would get it. The money would have to be right, as you said, Dave. But at the same time, just go draft a guy, get a young guy, 4-year deal, cheap contract. That's probably the better path than a veteran whose best days are behind him. But I think clearly in Pittsburgh, the scheme was so perfect for Bud Dupree. Whenever he left, it kind of felt like he's a good player. He's gotten a whole lot better, but Pittsburgh was so perfect for him. I don't think any other system or scheme was going to be right for him. Then, of course, you factor in the ACL injury. Just kind of felt like that was going to be a bad contract the second that Tennessee signed him. I don't know what his market value would be now, but it would have to be pretty economical.
Right. Plus, once again, he ain't going to run down and do anything for you on special teams.
Yeah. No, I don't think that's a requirement. Melvin Ingram didn't do it. James Harrison didn't do it late in his career. I mean, the number 4 has to do it. And so I think that's less of an issue than what it used to be. But, you know, just from do you want to put that kind of money on a 30-year-old on the wrong side of his career when you can go draft a guy? You know, you could maybe, but probably not.
Bryce wants to know if Canada's let go, who outside of Pat Myers do you think would stay on the offensive staff?
Most of them probably. I mean, you know, either the running backs coach contract isn't really related to what happens to the OC. I mean, it would depend on contracts and just individual performances. I mean, Matt Tomshaw would go, but, you know, everyone else would probably return.
I agree. Frank writes in, hey, Dave and Ox, Frank from North Carolina, great coverage and podcast this year of the Steelers. My question, could Chuks Okorafor be another player that's contract gets reworked this year? Frank, I know we just mentioned him. I just don't think you're going to see that happening. For first and foremost, it was a 3-year deal with him, right? If
3 years, $30 million.
Let me pull up the specifics related to his deal real quick if I can find it here.
I think it's 3 years, 30.
Yeah, and you're not going to restructure him. I'm looking in the wrong spot here. Here it is. He's got 2 more years left. He's got 2023, 2024. I mean, could you restructure him if you got in a pinch and needed cap space? Yes. But once again, he's got a $4 million roster bonus due in March. So if you're going to restructure the guy, you're going to restructure him in March because you want to turn that $4 million along with a good chunk of that $6 million base salary into a signing bonus. But you've only got one extra year on top of it to do something with there. So it's not going to get reworked that way. I don't think they're going to go to Chuks and ask for a pay cut. And then on the flip side, we don't think they're going to cut him either. So short answer to your question is I don't see anything being done with Chuks this offseason.
Agreed. He should be the starting right tackle in 2023.
Rick Smith, hey, David Knox, love the show. It's Rick from Delaware. First, a statement. I can't believe it's Monday morning and Matt Canada still has a job in Pittsburgh. Second, what is your opinion on David Long, off the ball linebacker from Tennessee? Seems like an affordable upgrade for next season since the draft talent seems questionable this year. Look, going back to the pre-draft conversations that Alex and I had, I was more of a David Long fan than I was, a lot more of a David Long fan than I was than Devon Bush. All that said, I've watched some of David Long just from weekly, watching football and stuff like that. I haven't paid a lot of mind to him overall. Long story short, could Long be try to say that real quick? Could Long be an option for them? I mean, if he was, then Miles Jack's not going to be in the picture.
Oh, and you couldn't have Long and Jack next to each other? I
know that's a weird. I mean, because we're already talking about Spillane being back, and it would feel very unlikely that it would be both Long and Jack. A lot of people are talking about Edmonds and all like that. I'll tell you this, Rick. I would not 100% rule out the possibility of that happening overall. And I think if there was one guy, other not named Tremaine Edmonds, that they might have interest in, I think it would be him as well, too. So I don't think it's totally out of the question.
It's probably more realistic than Tremaine Edmonds is right now, just for the cost of it all. I mean, Edmonds is going to get paid so much money. I don't know if that's the splash Pittsburgh could afford it, but is that the splash Pittsburgh really wants to take? Again, knowing they want to build this thing more inside out, starting in the trenches, maybe sign a more expensive D lineman and then add along as that second tier free agent type. That seems more likely to me. Will it happen? I'm still really early in that process, and we'll have to see who gets re-signed and those types of things. But like Dave, I would not discount it entirely.
Jason Campbell, Happy New Year. Not a Steelers question, but I'm wondering which current head coach would you want most if you have a young quarterback with more physical traits than polish? He says, I would vote for Brian Daboll. Josh Allen was a mess, and then the MVP candidate, Daniel Jones, was just about out the door, and now he has them advancing to the playoffs. Look forward to hearing your choices. He says, P.S. the player profiles are the best way to get through to the draft. Yeah, we agree there. I mean, look, Daboll's done a hell of a job, man. He's got the Giants now thinking, man, should we have picked up that fifth-year option on Daniel Jones? I mean, this is back into one of these hypothetical type questions that not a huge fan of overall. But I mean, if you want a head coach that seems like he's good with young quarterbacks, I mean, is Daboll the new Bruce Arians quarterback whisperer, if you will?
It's hard to say. I think he's done a tremendous job there. I have not given this, question much thought, but you go with the old school answer of Andy Reid, always working well with those guys, the structure, how friendly those offenses are to quarterbacks, which they should be. That's how you're supposed to build an offense. Doug Peterson and Jacksonville's done a great job. Daboll, had to give him a ton of credit. So yeah, I don't know what the answer is. My first instinct is to say Andy Reid, which is probably the most obvious and conventional one to give, but certainly what Daboll has done in Buffalo, now with New York, should be commended.
Mark Urbaniak writes in, keep up the great work. You guys just keep getting better. I disagree with the email on Friday's show about cutting out the research during podcasts. He says, I absolutely love it. It is one of the things that makes you guys so unique, and it shows that you know what you're doing. Plus, it gives us a look into how you think. It also makes the podcast longer, which is more than okay with me. Look, it's what we do. It's almost to some degree a competitive thing, nature of it too. I got to find this out, of the aspect. We don't like some of these questions are actually good questions that we get or we come up with during the show that I got to find the answer to that right now. I can't wait because our day moves so fast that if we don't do something whenever we think of it, especially stat related there, then we might not circle back to it. So, I mean, it's kind of just what Alex and I do.
Yeah, I think we're both cut from the same cloth where we just get bugged. We're kind of, if we don't know the answer to something and we don't look it up, we're kind of like, you feel that throughout the rest of the day of like, what is the answer to that? I'm just curious. They just like to know, to have that information, because you never know when it might be useful for both the conversation now and down the road. It may be something relevant to talk about. So it's kind of how the site's been built and just the way that Dave and I are wired.
One last one. There's a lot in here, but I'm just not going to have time to hit all of them here. This is from Sean writes in, Dave, I absolutely love the salary cap talk. I look forward to it, but could you please explain the rule of 51 in detail, please? Why not have a rule of 53? I don't know if it's just a typo because your email, you have roll of 53. It's rule of 53. Why not have a rule of 53 when that's your eventual roster? I just simply don't understand, and I'm not sure I'm not alone. Yeah, I mean, it's a great question, John, as far as why it is a rule of 51 and not a rule of 53. I have thought about that and asked that same question myself over the years when learning this. I have never been able to find the answer to that. I think at one point I even asked Joel Corey, thinking, why is it? I mean, it ends up being 53-man roster. Why is it not a rule of 53? And he doesn't even have an answer for it as well, too. He thinks maybe one time related to when, at one time maybe related to roster, stipulations and all like that as far as CBA. But I mean, even going back before it became a 53-man roster, wasn't it a 48-man roster? And,
Right.
even then, Sean, I don't have a great answer for you. It's one of those unknown mysteries of we need to write it down. If we ever get Kevin Colbert on the show, to find out the history of why it's the rule of 51. I wish I had a better answer for you, Sean. I don't. As far as what the rule of 51 is, it's an off-season mechanism, because you have obviously your off-season roster can swell all the way up to 90 now. It's just a mechanism to keep people from, I guess, overall from kind of hoarding players, if you will, if you think about it. Because if you didn't have a rule in place and you had a 90-man roster and you weren't counting an X amount of the cap hits to be in line starting on March at the new league year, what's to prevent a team from going out there and signing all these players with higher cap hits, and then maybe either auctioning them off via trades or just flat out cutting them, which the NFLPA is not a fan of. You see what I'm saying there?
It prevents any sort of abuse of roster management.
Right. So if you and what the rule of 51 is, you take your 51 highest cap expenditures plus any prorated money for that year, signing bonus, anything above and beyond a base salary for guys outside the rule of 51. That's at your proration, roster, whatever, gets tacked on as well to that. So you take your top 51, and then any player outside of the rule of top 51 that has any extra cap cost to them outside of base salary, that gets added to your 51 total. Obviously, any dead money that you have is part of that as well too. So the rule of 51 really does not technically end at your top 51 cap charges. It's more inclusive than that. But in theory, it's your top 51. It's extra cost outside of base salaries, outside the rule of 51, and then dead money.
Right. And why it's rule of 51? How long has that even been around for? How long has that even been part of the CBA, the calculation?
Oh man, for a while,
Okay, so maybe roster sizes were different, or maybe it just, instead of rule of 53, it's just a way to give teams a little additional flexibility instead of doing a rule of 53, which would, require more cap space needed. I guess I don't know. I don't know the answer to it.
Yeah, I wish I had a great answer of why it's a rule of 51, not a rule of 53. I just don't.
They probably just picked it one time and that was a number, and we all just roll with it.
Yeah, I mean, once again, I'd like to have the answer for that as well too, Sean. But I can't help you out there.
Just as we talked about needing to find these answers, that's one we probably won't get to for quite some time.
All right. Once again, we appreciate all the emails. Just way too many to get to here. Anything else you'd like to add, Alex?
Nope, that'll close things out. We will return on Wednesday and see if this coaching staff looks any different, and take it from there.
All right. In the meantime, you can follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex on Twitter at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do and want to donate to the cause, go to SteelersDepot.com. Hit the donate button up right navigational bar. Also, if you would like an ad-free version of the site, SteelersDepot.com. Hit the ad-free button up right navigational bar. A lot of draft stuff headed your way now. Alex and I'll be back on at it again on Wednesday. So in the meantime, as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.